Hello there, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Knocks to Nuggets. My name is Oluwayomi. It's such a joy to have you join me this beautiful Monday morning. It's the 17th day of January, and I'm so excited to have you. How was your weekend? How did you go? Was it partying? Was it fun? Was it work? Whatever it was, I hope it was fruitful. Welcome to another beautiful working week. And today on Knox to Nuggets, I'm so excited because it's full, it's packed. January is so packed, and I'm already seeing it spill over into February because of the huge nuggets that have been dropped for us in this month. But like I said in December, whatever knowledge you are not going to use, please don't add it. You don't need it. Everything you learn, please act on it. It's what you do with what you hear that brings you results. So once again, good morning to everyone joining me live. And for those that will join me thereafter, thank you. Thank you for giving me a share of your time. Like I always say, like the video, share it, pass your comment. Let somebody out there know there's something called Knocks to Nugget because together we are getting things done. So this morning, my guest in the house is a dear friend and brother. Hmm. Is a graduate of biochemistry, and I keep saying, "What did you go learn biochemistry for?" Well, that's who that's what he studied. He's a graduate of biochemistry. He has a master's in public policy management from the Manchester University. He's an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. As a member of the Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, is a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, and is also a member of the Institute of Development Association of Nigeria. Now, last week somebody said, "You are talking too fast." So I want to learn to slow down. I want to try it. It's tough, but I will try too. But I'm so excited. He is a strategist, is a guru in corporate governance, is a guru in change management and culture transformation, is a coach, is an HR strategist, is a performance management guru, is strong in learning and performance training. He is a facilitator par excellence. He is a fantastic man of God. He is a husband, a father to wonderful children. I love those kids. They're just simply amazing. My guest this morning is no other than Babatunde Bamgboye. Ooh, good to have you.
Thank you
Good
for having me, ma.
morning.
It's an honor and a privilege to be part of the roster of all stars who have come on this very esteemed platform. Thank you so much, ma, for the opportunity.
It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for agreeing to come. I appreciate the value of your time and that you could make out time. But today, I want to juice everything I can get out of you. So I'm not going to let you go. And I want us to just talk to the issue of achieving your career goals. Achieving your career goals. So over to you today. Just talk to us.
Oh, thank you very much, ma. And I think it's a very important topic for those of us who are on the career journey. And I will speak to three things, or maybe two things. The first thing I would like to speak to would be the context of today's work, which we sort of say the future of work. Well, the future of work is here. Then I will talk to the goals that we need to set, as well as the attributes, attitudes, or behaviors in achieving those goals. And to speak to the context, it's important for us to know, and I'd like to spend some time there. The reason being that it's important for us to understand where we are, where work is heading, where the worker is, and where the organization finds itself within this particular context. So we have come into what we refer to as an era of what I term an era of convergence. And sort of to qualify that, I'll call it an era of exponential convergence. And the reason why I say this is that um, the Aristotle technologies that seem to be discrete. So, for instance, we see different sciences. So, the pure sciences like biology, physics, we see them as discrete parts at different ends. What we're seeing in this era now is that we're seeing how chemistry, how biology is coming together to form an entirely different kind of technology. We are seeing that in this era, we have the components, the wherewithal, and the knowledge to be able to execute so many of these things. So, if we're going to thrive in this era, it's important for us to understand that we are in this context. But there are two things, or probably just one thing for you to note, that even though this era is driven largely or predominantly by technology, but these technology in themselves are people driven. And for you to
Mm.
understand that, it means that if they are people driven, organizations, systems are looking for individuals who are skilled enough to be able to drive all of these processes. And this is very, very important to note. In fact, I think in a Deloitte research, they called it the Great Restructuring. And the reason why they say the Great Restructuring is that there has been a if you're thinking about an earthquake, a tsunami has hit today's workplace and workplace, and it has changed the way we see and perceive work. And this also is very important because once upon a time, organizations have always thrived by looking at their core competence. They have said to themselves that this is what makes us great. But what we have seen in this era of convergence, exponential convergence, I dare say, is that no more are we looking at what we refer to as core competence. What we're looking at right now is what is referred to as arenas. And to give a good
Mm.
example of what I mean, is that let's think about 7 Up, for instance. So, 7 Up was an organization that does, obviously, beverages. So, we know they do 7 Up and everything across that value chain. But all of a sudden, 2020 hits, and right now, the channels to which they were selling many of these their products had closed. In other words, there was a disruption in the supply chain, which means that if there's a disruption in the supply chain, it means that value is not being created. And if there's no value being created, it means that there's no revenue generated. So we
True.
see that a stream of income was blocked. But one thing they
Mm.
had to do was to reconceive what they considered their core competence. And what they found out was that they looked at their assets and they were able to leverage their assets and they were able to segue into other arenas, i.e., what we call Too Sure, for instance, the
Yeah.
hand sanitizer, which is a money
Advisor.
spinner for them. In fact, they've moved from hand sanitizer, they've now started making soaps that kills germs. And the reason why is that they're able to leverage on that. Now, I want you to think about the employer and the employee who operates within this client. Imagine if you are able to position yourself in that reality. So what will happen is that there are lots of people right now who their core competence and their skill set is to manage they think beverage. But now the organization has pivoted into something completely different. So imagine if you were able to look past your industry and look at what are the customers saying. If you can look past and position your skill sets right in the direction in which your industry or your organization is heading to, imagine right
Wow.
now the kind of premium you'll be commanding.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
that's why it's important for us to understand the context of a lot of these things. So it's important. So think about what's happening in the financial space, for instance. We see that banks were more driven by brick and mortar and customers coming into a physical structure. But with the advent of technology and the barriers to entry lowered, we have seen smaller companies, i.e., Flutterway, Paystack, and all the likes. We have seen that they
Yeah.
have disrupted this space and they are filling their organizations. Now, telcos have now looked at themselves and say to themselves that listen, we have the numbers, we have the technology, we have the channels. Therefore, it means that we can compete effectively in the financial space. So you're seeing telcos right now threatening traditional banking systems. So that
True.
tells you that imagine if you had positioned yourself to understand data science, to understand because you have data. Banks have a lot of data. That is, you have seen behavioral patterns, you have seen buying patterns of your client. Imagine if you have developed yourself as a data scientist, and with your behavioral economics background, you are able to understand the psychography of the people to which your organization is serving. You are able to generate meaningful insight to allow your organization compete. So now we have seen that organizations have moved from what is referred to as their core competence into what is referred to as arenas. Arenas
Arena.
are where your customers are, even where your non-technical customers are. You have entered into arenas in where new channels of distributions are opened. So for you, the employee, imagine working in this organization. It means that you need to have the foresight. So foresight and the ability for you to see around the corner are skill sets that enables you compete favorably within this particular workspace. Because as automation and artificial intelligence becomes the mainstay in a lot of organizations, it means that your current job role is already being disrupted. I like us to
Yeah.
consider these 6 Ds, and these 6 Ds are very important. I want you to think about them. So maybe ask me to know, what does this mean about planning my career? It's important because when we think about competence, what competence, which means competence is an acronym I like to use, ASK, that is the attitudes, the skills, and the body of knowledge required for me to become a premium player within my industry or within my particular domiciled market. It's very important. When you understand what is happening, you can understand the trajectory of where your industry is heading to, and you position yourself in that future. In a book I read years ago by two fantastic strategists, one of them is dead. His name is C.K. Prahalad, and another man who's a professor at London Business School. His name is Gary Hamel. The book of Telugu is called Competing for the Future. I think around chapter 6, there was a particular statement that stood out for me when we were talking about strategic architecture. And he said a statement, said the future can no longer be imagined, it has to be built. So if you're on this call and you're listening, it's important for you to ask yourself, right? What is happening in the future that I need to be able to position myself? In other words, a critical skill is the ability for you to think 5 steps ahead of your industry. So now,
Mm.
which means, like my friend Bimba Tutoye explained, which means that even if your organization right now is not playing in that space, what is happening in the bigger picture of your industry, i.e., what is happening in the global space? What is happening even in our continent, Africa? What other more advanced markets, probably like South Africa or Egypt or Morocco? What is happening in that spaces? What is happening to organizations within that spaces? And how can I ensure that I have marketable skills that can make me a premium player in that space, or command a premium pay within that space? So think about these 6 Ds. Number one, think about your job role currently and ask yourself, is your job role going to be digitized?
Mm.
If your job role is going to be digitized, which means that there is a potential or potentiality for it to be automated, it already means that the picture that it paints, it means there's a second D. It means that disruption for you is already deceptive. It means that you're in
Mm-hmm.
a job role that the next 2 or 3 years is going to be obsolete. So it means that
True.
right now you're on a faulty seat, you're sitting on a chair without legs. You're living a
Mm.
lifestyle that is false because very soon you'll be kicked out of that job. So disruption is deceptive. When your job, that's the third D, when your job is already disrupted, it means it's already too late. It's already
Hmm.
too late. Also, think about the next things. If your job role can be dematerialized, that is, if there is no need for a physical space, if there is no need for you to be around, that is, the process of your work can be automated. A good example is the advent of artificial intelligence and call centers.
Mm.
So you're seeing now the advancement across artificial intelligence, that the ability for you to pick up on behavioral patterns because of certain algorithms which can help deduce behavioral patterns, predict behavior as a result of data sets. Now, with
Yeah.
that at the back of your mind, the question is that if you're a call center, you're working for any of the organizations, your job is already being threatened. So already
True.
your work is already dematerialized. The second thing is that can I pay less for your role? Because right now
Mm.
you're working in an organization, they're paying your HMO, they're paying your maternity leave and all of that. The truth about the matter is that if they can demonetize your role, that's what they're going to look for. And the last one is that can it be easily sourced, which is to democratize. So think about easily sourced. Can they outsource your role? So we need to, so when you are thinking and planning your career in 2022, these are the things that you need to think about. These are the things
Wow.
that you need to think about. Like I said earlier on before, that there is a lot of reconstruction that is happening within our spaces today. So you need to begin to ask yourself questions about what is my organization saying, what are people saying, and all of those things. Those things that begins to matter. I want you to think about these three questions, which are sort of jotted down. All right. So the question is that who does the work? Who does the work? All right. And if you're thinking about who does the work, does my work require a full-time staff or a
Mm.
part-time staff or somebody that is freelancing? So we see works organization like Upstart that sort of promotes freelancing, whereby people can come on sort of a flexi time, scheduled time. At the end of the day, why would I hire somebody and pay a premium on looking after you and all of that? So you need to ask yourself, who does my work? Number
Mm.
two, how is this work going to be done? So we are in the fourth industrial revolution. What the fourth industrial revolution, what that simply means is that technology in itself is speaking to one another. If the technology is gotten right, especially in our climate, which is already in advanced stages in other climes, if the technology is gotten right and they are speaking one to another, it therefore means that I'm already out of a job. That is, if the artificial intelligence through machine learning has the ability to respond to you like a human being can respond as a result of considering your own consumer decision patterns, your own predictability. Then at the end of the day, and they're speaking one to another, achieving for me in terms of revenue generation and profitability, and for you services rendered, that means that you're right now you don't have a job. Then the next thing is there a where and when of this work being done? So where simply means that right now, do I need to have a physical space? Two, is there a when? Can I schedule this time? That is, instead of me doing the traditional 40 hours a week, right? If I'm going to do 40 hours a week, question right now you should ask yourself is that can this thing be slashed down simply because the process can be automated? All they need for you is just to manage the back end. So the point I'm saying to each and every one of us is that when you think about some of these thoughts, right? When you think about some of these thoughts, you begin to ask yourself, how therefore do I plan my work? One last
Wow.
comment, just for us to have a breather, is that a lot of organizations are toying with what we refer to as jobs. As jobs. So right now, when you got hired, there was a job description. So there is a portfolio. So there's a job description that defines that when I come to work, these are XYZ things that I should be doing. There is a proficiency level. Proficiency level means that you probably entered as an entry level, all right? And at the entry level, there's certain expectations for you at an entry level, even though your job description is stated like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, organizations globally are now beginning to ask themselves that these jobs that we're talking about, they're two very broad thinking. The first one is that should we break these jobs down in such a way that people can become what is referred to as hyper specialized in an area? So
Mm.
they're now, so organizations, probably most organizations, like I said, this is just to give you a rule of thumb. But if you can observe it in your organization, you can see this direction. If they're breaking your job role down into smaller components, that means they're looking for more specialist role. So can you be a specialist in that area? Two, some organizations are thinking that let's think about a bigger picture. So what they have done is that they've done away with the job role. They're not thinking about jobs in the traditional sense. They're asking, what is to be done and how is that thing going to be done. So a key component of that is that I'm looking for people that can think like entrepreneurs, which we refer to as entrepreneurs, men and women that can have a position of the business, they understand the direction of the business, and they can develop solutions in line with the purpose of that business. They become entrepreneurs, they become stakeholders within the organization. That is a different set of skills. So
Mm.
organizations are thinking about breaking the job roles into different parts. Organizations are also thinking about expanding it into broader roles and by completely. So when you so some organizations, to mention them, some organizations are thinking, for instance, in terms of the broad sense, that come and work for us. We're not going to give you any job title. We're going to be thinking about projects. I
Wow.
remember a series of videos, Thriving in Chaos by a man called Tom Peters. So I have this CDs. So the title of the series, so it was from his book, Thriving on Chaos, if I'm correct. But the title of this series of CDs was called Embracing Chaos. And he said that anybody that works in an organization, and this was in the 1990s, he said one thing you must think about is to think about projects. And now
Mm.
organizations right now are creating projects. That is, at the end of the day, everybody should be a project manager, which is called Agile. Everybody should be a project manager. Everybody should be able to respond to clients quicker and faster. In other words, you are become a company on your own, responding on
Mm.
behalf of an organization. In other words, you become CEO. You're taking a broadened role. But note, for you to have a broader role within this context of this kind of organization, there's a certain level of thinking that is required. There's a
Mm.
certain level of skills that is required. Let me end with this in terms of our conversation, so I can, just in case you have any thoughts, is that World Economic Forum in 2020 came up with the future of jobs. So if anybody's on this call, all you need to do is to type in the future of jobs, and you will see from World Economic Forum. So it was research done, and they were looking at how jobs themselves are evolving, how the concept of what you call job descriptions are completely now being dematerialized. That is, the structure and the functions, the systems guiding the traditional jobs are completely gone. I mean, this is research carried out from Society of Human Resource, Deloitte, even McKinsey are already challenging the the nature, excuse me, of jobs. What they're asking is that think projects. So right now, what that means is that rather than looking for one cubicle and you have your desk, right now you just have a project team desk. When you work on this project, you move to the next project. You move to the next project. So for you to have a project mindset, it needs a certain skill set. So think
Mm.
about what I'm about to share with you right now. In that job, future of jobs, they did said something very important. They said in 2025, these are the job skills. These are the competencies. Remember what I said competencies are attitudes or behaviors, skills,
Yeah.
as well as body of knowledge, which is called act.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think of this. These are the skills that are going to be relevant by 2025. Now, listen to the following skills. And I want you to notice a lot of them. Please listen to this. Number one, they said analytical thinking and innovation. Number two, active learning and learning strategies. And I'm going to talk to that shortly. It's called the 3 by 3 by 3. It said complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality, and initiative, leadership and social intelligence, technology use, monitoring and control, technology design and programming, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. So you can see resilience now, which is a behavioral component, is a key competence, and reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. So out of 10 critical core skills that are relevant in 2025, listen to this, every one of us. Listen to this. Five of them is about thinking.
Yeah.
Five of them is about the ability for you to deconstruct complexity. Five of them is about the ability for you to innovate, whether disrupting Aristotle systems or building upon Aristotle systems. Five. And this is so important. This is so important. So, like never before, everybody needs to begin to develop certain skills. And when you notice about these skill sets that are relevant in 2025, it speaks to a critical component which organizations must develop, which is called agile. The ability
Mm,
to respond to customer needs quickly and more responsively. So agile is a body of knowledge right now, which is part of project management, which is a skill set all of us must develop because organizations are moving to more projectized form. Why? Because whether we like it or please remember what I said. I want you to understand this. We're still talking about the context. Please listen to
yeah.
this. That is to say, organizations are playing to their strengths currently, but the organizations that would win are organizations that tend to where their customers are, not
Mm,
necessarily their traditional customers. So
mm.
you need to be able to pivot or segue as quickly as possible. And these skill sets are relevant in this area. So that is why a lot of people are adopting a lot of flat structure. They're removing titles whereby you're being rewarded by value being created both to the organization and to the eventual customer. So everybody, it's time for you to rethink I mean, to challenge your own thinking, to rethink your thinking. Let me share something that Adam Grant, I listened to him a lot, what he said in his book. So, a book that I think you should all read, he wrote it, I think, last year, 2020 years. It's called Think Again. He opens chapter one by telling a story of a man called Douglas Wagner, who happens to be a firefighter. Now, this special kind of firefighter that he is, what they do is that when there are wildfires, in, in the wildlife areas of America, these people, right, you can't naturally go by their fire trucks into these wildfires. What they do is that they are dropped through a plane, so they sort of parachute into the wildfires. So they got into the goulash. So the goulash really is like it's a steepy area. It's a gap between two steepy mountainous areas. They were thrown into that area and they noticed, you just follow me, they noticed that the fire was raging and it was destroying a lot of things. They knew that there was nothing they could do. So remember, they're carrying a lot of equipment and all of that. So they were running up this steep mountain and the fire, the wildfire was raging on. The leader, Wagner Douglas, decided to stop and said, everybody drop your equipment. Nobody dropped their equipment. Because by default setting, they have been trained to think in a particular way. They didn't drop it. So imagine climbing up a mountain carrying a very heavy. So a lot of them were, people died along the way. So eventually, those of them were able to get to the top of this mountain. The fire was still coming towards them. The man knew that they could not outrun it. So what he decided to do at the spur of the moment, he challenged his own mental models, his own assumptions about his current work role. You know what he did? He took some um, a book and all of that he found where he was. He lit it and burnt the grass that was all around him. When he did that, he lay down flat and found out that no oxygen was still coming from the ground. So he was able to still breathe in oxygen and the fire passed over him. Now he told the other people to join him. They didn't join him. Out of 12 people, only 3 people survived. One did the unconventional, the two were able to outrun the fire. The question was this: what assumptions do we have about our current role that is affecting us today? It's important that right now that you need to begin to conceive the way you think about your current role and begin to position yourself in the future. When you are stuck in the past, you're stuck in the past. I think Jack Welch said thing that if you do not change, then you like irrelevance better. So it's
Yes.
important that you begin to think about this thing. Now, in all of these things I've mentioned, it's important not to begin to ask yourself, okay, how therefore do I plan my career goals? So I'll pause there to
So
allow you any comments.
thank you. Thank you. I would just want to tell you to please just pause there because, in all honesty, we are going to continue this one next week, Monday. I just took permission from our speaker for next week to move in so that we can continue without breaking the flow. Because you said so much. I'm sure if everybody on the call is like me. We want to go back and listen again and chew and come. I mean, you said so much. Somebody said this is deep, and I totally agree. So another person said this is loaded. Very true. You said so much. Before we come to the how, I think it's important for all of us to sit back, to listen again, and then come back and listen to the how, so that we can actually get the best out of this whole episode. When we're thinking about, when we started talking, I was like, if you have written career goals, I'm sure you want to rewrite already, because most likely the things you have written are already obsolete by the reason of the things he said today. And it's so much. I kept writing, I was looking down, I kept writing, and I just said to myself at the point, stop writing. Thank God it's there on YouTube, it's there on Facebook. I'm going to listen to it again tonight and maybe every day of the week to juice everything out, because, like Gilbert said, every career person has got to think like an entrepreneur. It's no longer about your job description anymore. You must own the job to the point where you are not just the role holder, you are the organization holder. Because if you can be replaced, you are gone. Nobody is.
That's
If
very
you,
important.
yes, if you can be replaced by a machine. Inifon said, so sad. Unfortunately, that is the truth. Machines are replacing us so quickly. So quickly. Even doctors. Now you have robotic doctors. Hey, performing surgery.
Yes.
Ah. So the things that we held so dear, we are finding out that in this era, they are no longer important. So today, I want to appeal to you. Let's take the how next Monday. Will that be okay?
I'll get back to you on that, but I'll get because I'm in class next Monday. But I'll get back to you on that, man. But I
I'm
think it's
free.
important for us to but I think it's important. But if you just let me just say two things that were done. The first thing
Go
is
ahead.
for you to think about
But but
in,
but that will not take you
in
off
terms
the
of
second
everything
the
we have
part
said.
These
No,
two
no,
things
no,
will
no,
not take you
no.
off.
It's just to say 2 points. No, no, it's not. It's not. The first is I want people to go. So when you're listening or just thinking, it's for you to ask us so that you're not going overwhelmed. That's the point.
Yeah.
The first thing is to let you know that, and this is from research, is that um, the fourth industrial revolution, in terms of its technology, is going to be powered by human. So it's important for you to note that. So it's not doom and gloom. Truth, machines are going to really disrupt a lot of things. Artificial intelligence are going to come in. But truth be told as well is that humans, so it means that we need to upskill and reskill. It's very important. And it's not just putting up words, it's important. So that's why the first thing you all must think about is to have an agenda. Like I shared a story with you finally on that, is that a friend of mine works for a very large IT firm in Nigeria, a global brand, and he started as a programmer, went on to as a super programmer, as a senior programmer, and all of that. But there's something that he noticed as a result of he was very so curiosity is a very important skill. So he was curious about the trajectory of what's going to happen within his space. And yet the organization had not yet reconceived itself in the light of how technology was evolving, even though they were bought by a global brand and all of that. And this was what happened. He positioned himself by understanding the requirements. He moved past the industries to where the channels of distribution were, what customers were saying. That is the agitations that he could sense within that space. And he was able to position himself. He was able to move from operations to more managerial role simply because he had invested and spent time in skills required for his future. The principle there was that he had an agenda. So as you go from this call, ask yourself, what is my agenda? Which is an intentionality about what I'm heading to. What is my agenda? Now, he operates in a role in which HR also has a challenge because the industry is still evolving, but he has positioned himself in such a way that he's now indispensable, in quote, to the organization. He now drives, so he has a seat at the table. Now, note, as we build our career, the ultimate aim, every one of us, is that we have a seat at the table, that we
Mm.
can sit with the decision makers because they consider you as a valuable, not the word I'm about to use, partner of the organization. Valuable partner of the organization. For you to have a seat at the table, then it means that you have to do certain things different. So in the next time we're going to sort of break it down. What are the things that you need to think about? So when I mean agenda, what does that mean? We look at what is referred to as you need to be intentional about your learning. How do we break learning down in such a way that it aligns? So when we say learning, many of us, what we try to do is that we look at learning and dissociate learning to the relevancy of what we have learned to our industry and our organization. These are the goals, the organizational agenda that you have set. So have a learning agenda that speaks to the organizational cycle of your business so that HR and people within your business can actually see that skills that you are having is relevant to where we're heading and addressing our own peculiarities. So we'll talk about that's what's called 3 by 3 by 3. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about some other things around leadership, and we'll talk about so there's a lot we'll talk about. There's a lot that we'll need to talk about. We'll look at some leadership skills about I think I have about 5 skills that we must all develop because we all have to have a CEO mindset. Let me share
Mm.
this. Sorry, in fact, there's an FMCG, a global brand in this country. I had the privilege of working with them, and what they did was that the global brand wanted to align their purpose, right, to the leadership framework as a competence to the organization. And one of the key competence that they wanted every man, if coming to a managerial level, but more so if we started as an entry level, guess what it was called? The founder's mentality. They needed
Mm.
everybody to have a founder's mentality, to take ownership of it, to stop making excuses or stop laying their bed in the plane of mediocrity. And I've said this before, bed being an acronym is stop playing the blame game. Stop making excuses because an excuses never existed until you created it. And stop working in denial. So these things are important. So founders mentality is a very important. In fact, it's a conversation that businesses are having today. How do we get people within our business to take ownership? So this my friend in this particular industry, he was able to take ownership because he understood. Now he has conversations with the CIO and the CTO of this organization, as well as the CEO. When they're having conversations, they refer to him. So, have you all spoken with him? Have you all spoken with him? Have you all spoken with him? He now, that this is where we're going to. Now, in terms of job, his job is completely out of this. He doesn't have a job description as the case may be. So he works on projects for this organization and he's being rewarded by the kind of value that he creates for the business. Let me say one last thing about context. Listen to this, every one of us, and it's very important. Today's job construct is today's job construct was designed to answer the questions of what happened in the industrial age.
Mm.
Today's job concept, performance management, all of that, even today's MBA, right, does not answer the questions of a very agile, fast-paced, deeply exponential era, whereby skills are completely doubling. You know, if you use the Moore's law, or that
Yeah.
technology will be doubling every 18 months, where you see that your skills that you have developed today is only becoming obsolete because technology is moving at an exponential rate. So so organizations are rethinking it. So rethink yourself before you get disrupted. Disrupt yourself. Thank you.
Wow. Before you get disrupted, please disrupt yourself. This is loaded. I'm almost thinking maybe we just leave you off next week and come back in February and take you on another session. Let's finish this and bring you back. But we will talk about it behind the scene and see which one works best because There's so much. I can't
Yeah.
even see one edition taking it on. It's really a wow, wow, wow session. Thank you so much, Tunde, for coming on, and thank you for laying it all bare. I know one thing that you said
Economy.
that
Thank
just kept
you.
coming back to me is that technology is driven by somebody. Why not be that person? Why just not be that person
Yeah.
that would the technology, not that technology will drive out. So there are two things: that technology drives you, or you drive technology. Put yourself in the later, drive technology, and
Yeah.
just be, yeah, that's it, and just be indispensable to your industry. Thank you so much, Tunde. Trust me, we are coming back on and
Yeah.
we'll take it further. Thank you so much for coming on today. I truly appreciate you.
Thank
Have
you
a
very much for the
fantastic
opportunity,
week
man.
ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, wow, wow. That was huge. That's not a mouthful. That was mouthful. And a big thank you to Tunde again for taking time out to share with us. And yes, it's getting better and better by each episode. Thank you so much, everybody on the call. Thank you. We are because you are. Thank you so much. And like I said, Knocks to Nuggets will be three. I'm so excited at the journey so far, but it couldn't have been done without you. Your feedback, your contribution, your being on the call at all just makes it worthwhile. And never forget it. If you can think it, you can be it, you can do it. And all the time, it's together that we win. So have a fantastic week, a glorious working week, and just enjoy. God bless you. Bye for now.